The signal came from a place no ship dared to go. It was weak, broken, and filled with static. But the last part of the message was clear. Help. They're still here. We're still transmission lost. The signal was picked up by an old listening post on Jupiter's moon Europa. Most officers ignored it. Space was full of dying signals and dead ghosts. But not Commander Alina Rook. She stared at the waveform, her eyes narrow. This is recent. Less than 2 weeks. Old? From where? Her science officer asked. Rook pointed at the map. Her finger landed on the Zaraki cluster, a cursed zone in the far reaches of the galaxy. Ships that entered never came back. Satellites lost contact. Entire scouting fleets vanished. Everyone believed it was haunted or worse, cursed by some ancient force. Everyone, except humans. Rook smiled. Get the Black Ember ready. We're going. 3 days later, aboard human recon cruiser Black Ember, the ship floated above a dead world. Planet 9X472 was dark. No cities, no green, no oceans. Just scorched land and shattered mountains. But something moved below. Commander Weir. Picking up faint power signals under the surface, the engineer reported. How deep? Rook asked. Too deep for a standard scan. But they're not natural. Rook looked at her crew. We go down. Their drop shuttle descended through thick black clouds. The surface was hotter than expected, burned, like it had once held. Cities now turned to ash. The team moved carefully, 6 humans in heavy armor, scanning the area. Nothing alive, muttered Corporal Vance. Just ruins. They reached what looked like the remains of a large temple or command station. Giant stone-like metal beams stretched toward the sky, cracked and melted inside. Everything was still. Dust floated through the air. The only sound was the crunch of boots. Then came the voice, a small, broken whisper. Over there comes help. Before they come back. The team froze. Source? Rook asked. Local, inside this structure. Soldiers rushed forward, weapons ready. Behind a broken wall, they found a pod, small, damaged, covered in alien markings. Inside the pod was a child, thin, blue-skinned, eyes glowing faintly, breathing barely. Rook knelt beside it. It's alive. Suddenly, the walls around them lit up. Symbols appeared on the metal. Lines of light spread like veins through the stone, and then the planet shook. Something's rising from under the surface, shouted the pilot from orbit, in the sky above. Strange towers began to emerge from underground, rising slowly like massive claws. From those towers, a new signal began broadcasting, not in words but in emotion, fear, pain, hopelessness. Every crew member felt it. Private Myra dropped to her knees, clutching her head. They're in my mind. Rook grabbed her, shaking her hard. Fight it. Whatever this is, it feeds on fear. The child in the pod looked up. They found your signal, it said weakly. You called. Now they see you too. Back on the Black Ember, the ship's AI screamed alerts. Unidentified life forms detected in lower decks. What? In orbit, the captain shouted, but it was true. Cameras showed shadows moving where no one stood. The ship's lights flickered. Then the feed cut out. Evacuate the team, the captain yelled. On the planet, Rook received the order. But before they could move, something appeared in the doorway. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was a shadow shaped like a body but shifting, flickering like it didn't belong in this world. It stepped forward. The temperature dropped. The child screamed. Rook opened fire. The bullets passed through it like smoke, but something inside it hissed like it had been stung. The others joined her, spraying rounds and throwing thermal charges. The creature dissolved into black mist, then vanished. Rook turned to her team. Grab the child. We're leaving now. They reached the dropship and launched fast. The sky was now full of strange lightning. The planet below boiled with unnatural storms, but the pod was safe. The child was asleep, and Rook had a message. For Earth, this was no ghost world. It was a grave. And something down there. Back on the Black Ember, systems were still REBOOT. As the ship turned to leave orbit, The crew saw one final message burned into the side of a mountain. Not in alien language, but in perfect human English. "You heard us," the black ember drifted silently above the ruined planet. Inside the ship, no one spoke. The strange mountain message, "You heard us," was burned into everyone's minds. Commander Rook stood on the observation deck, was locked on the dead world below. The rescued alien child lay in the medical bay, unconscious, glowing softly. Behind her, a science officer approached. "We scanned the child's body, Commander. Its brain activity is off the charts." "In what way?" Rook asked without turning. "It's processing memories, millions of them, like it's remembering the fall of an entire civilization." Rook finally turned around. "Then maybe we should ask what it remembers." In the med bay, the child awoke. Its name was Fliss. It spoke in broken English, learned from fragments pulled from human minds during the shadow attack. "I was inside the core, alone. For years, my people, they hid me there." "Why?" Rook asked. Talus looked down, trembling. "Because they took everyone else." "Who are they?" Thalys whispered one word. "The Hollowed." Later that day, the crew began scanning the surface again. Something wasn't right. The ground pulsed with energy. Even though all known power systems had been destroyed centuries ago, the ship's sensors picked up an underground complex deep, massive and still active. Rook frowned. "That's where the child was buried?" "No," replied the science officer. "That's something else, something older." Despite Earth Command's warning to leave immediately, Rook made her decision. They would go back down planet surface. Hours later, the team returned with a smaller group for soldiers, one engineer, and Commander Rook herself. They entered the underground complex using a cracked ventilation shaft. Inside, the air was thick and heavy. Faint lights flickered. Along the walls, symbols glowed dimly. The architecture was nothing like the ruins above. "It's a vault," whispered the engineer. "Not built by the same race as the child. Then who built it?" Someone asked. Rook walked deeper into the corridor. "Let's find out." Reached a large chamber with strange machines circling the center. In the middle stood a crystal column, glowing faintly blue. Floating inside was a man. At first glance, he looked human. But scans showed something strange. "His cells are mixed," the medic said. "Part human, part unknown, but very much alive." Then the crystal cracked. Alarms blared. Lights shut off. Doors behind them slammed shut, and the man opened his eyes. The room went silent. He slowly stepped out of the broken crystal, looking around. His movements were calm, controlled. He spoke perfect English. "My name is Lexanine. I was born during the first silence." Rook raised her weapon. "Are you hollowed?" He shook his head. "Right. No. I was made to fight them." Flashback begins told. By Lexan, thousands of years ago, a great alliance ruled the stars. But they feared rebellion and war, so they created weapons creatures that could not die, could not be reasoned with. The Hollowed, they were meant to be perfect tools. They fed on fear and memory, things no armor could protect against. But the Hollowed became too strong. Turned on their makers. Entire star systems fell in the final days. The Alliance built vaults to hide knowledge and protect survivors. Lexan was one of their last creations, a warrior made from human DNA, spliced with alien enhancements, designed to survive the Hollowed back in the present. Rook stared at Lexan. "Why us?" she asked. "Why send the signal now?" Lexan stepped forward, eyes cold. "Because the Hollowed were asleep. But someone woke them, and now they've seen you." He walked to the wall and pressed a hand to it. The wall split open, revealing dozens of metal statues lined in rows. Not statues, bodies, armored, human-sized. "Who are they?" the soldier asked. Lexan answered, "The first Deathworlders, Earth's early colonists. They died fighting. Now it's your turn." Back aboard the Black Ember, sensors began blinking wildly. The storm above the planet was growing again, but this time, It wasn't natural. Shapes were moving in the clouds, twisting, watching, waiting. The AI screamed one word through the speaker. Infiltration detected. Inside the ship, lights dimmed. Shadows moved where no crew stood, and in the comms room, the message repeated. You heard us. Now we hear you. The scream tore through the black, embers halls. Not a human scream. Something deeper. Something wrong. Private Vance aimed his rifle into the corridor. I saw it. A shadow with teeth. Commander Rook stepped beside him, her own weapon ready. Hold your ground. Nothing gets to the core. Not while we're here. But deep inside, she knew they were already too late. Minutes earlier, in the underground vault, Lexanine had warned them. If the Hollowed are aboard your ship, they've already learned your structure. They'll use fear to open doors, control systems, infect. Memory. The Hollowed didn't need to walk. They became part of the environment. Back on the ship, power flickered. The engine room was now a graveyard of lights. The technician in charge, Lieutenant Caraspun, his flashlight shaking in her hands. She saw nothing, but felt everything behind her. Something formed from the shadows. Long limbs, empty eyes. No mouth, but still, it whispered. You don't belong here. No one does. A moment later, screams filled the comms again. On the planet, Rook received the emergency call. Lexan, she asked sharply, how do we fight them? He looked straight at her. You don't fight fear with fire. You fight it with truth. But you humans, you fight anyway. That's what makes you different. He stepped toward a sealed door in the vault, behind its ancient weapons. Rook nodded, and let's give them a real Deathworlder welcome. Aboard the Black Ember, upper deck Corporal Mira moved through the halls with a flamethrower unit. Her eyes darted everywhere. She saw pictures of her dead brother on the walls, heard his voice. Why'd you leave me, Myra? She paused. Her grip weakened. The hallway began to close in, like the walls were alive. Suddenly FWOOM. Rook's voice shouted in her come. Burn it all. Mira pulled the trigger. Fire roared through the corridor, and the vision vanished, replaced by ash and smoke. The Hollowed hated flames. Not because it burned them, but because it brought clarity. Rook and Lexan returned to the ship through emergency launch tubes. Lexan looked around the flickering halls. They're testing you, learning you. The longer you survive, the more they evolve. That's fine, Rook muttered, loading her pulse rifle. So do we. In the medbay, the alien child Thalas began to glow again. His mind touched something across the void. They remember Earth, he whispered. Not from now, but from long ago. Rook turned to him. What do you mean? He looked up, eyes filled with stars. They met humans before. War? But you were just primitives then. You still fought. You burned them. Lexan's face darkened. That explains it. You're not just targets. You're unfinished business. Suddenly, the Hollowed made their move. They emerged in full form, ripping through the bulkheads. Like knives through paper, no longer shadows. Now they wore human faces. Dead crew, old friends, even Rook. Saw herself among them, but she didn't flinch. Burn them. Shoot them. Don't listen to anything they say. And so the battle began. The Hollowed swarmed the corridors. They didn't move like normal enemies. They twisted, floated, folded through walls. One human screamed as he was pulled into a vent, not eaten, but absorbed into the creature's body. His memories used as a mask. In the command room, Lexan activated a final protocol. A pulse that scanned the minds of the crew. Painful, bright, but necessary. It found who was real, and who was already compromised. 3 crew members began screaming. Black veins crawled across their faces. They weren't human anymore. They were shells. Rook didn't hesitate. She fired once, twice, thrice. 1 shot each. No one questioned her. Hours later, the ship was sealed again. 22 dead, many injured, but the Hollowed had been pushed back. For now, Rook leaned against a wall, covered in ash and blood. Her breathing was slow, controlled. We lost a quarter of the crew, she said. Lexen nodded. But you made them bleed. He looked toward the stars beyond. The viewport you should know. The hollowed don't forget pain. You hurt them. You left a scar. Rook's eyes narrowed. Good, because we're just getting started. In the shadows of deep space, far beyond the Zaraki cluster, the hollowed retreated. Their shapes flickered. Their thoughts twisted. And then a new plan was born. A voice among them whispered, Earth must fall. This time, completely. A single, hollowed creature drifted through deep space. It had no face, no true form, but it carried something with it, a scream. Not sound, not light, a scream made of memory, a pain and fury. It reached others like it many waiting in the dark. It shared what had happened on the Deathworlders ship. The fire, the resistance. Human who did not fear. And with that scream, they awoke. Aboard the Black Ember, Commander Rook stood at the main console. Dallas, the alien child, sat beside her, weak but alert. His voice was low. They know your names now. They speak them like curses. How many are coming? Rook asked. Lexinine answered. All of them. The room fell silent. Then Earth must know, Rook said. They need to prepare. But the comms officer interrupted. We tried. Long-range signal isn't getting through. Lexin stepped forward. That's because the hollowed aren't just coming. They're already here. Back in orbit, the crew scanned deep space readings. They saw something impossible. An entire planet was moving. Not rotating, moving through space. Fast, unstoppable. A hollowed world, covered in twisting black towers and cracked skin like bone, dragged darkness behind it like a cloak. It wasn't just a home. It was a weapon. And it was aimed at Earth. Rook gritted her teeth. We don't have time to run. She turned to Lexon. You said humans once fought them? How? Lexon nodded slowly. With emotion. With memory. With light, he placed a glowing core on the table. This is a soulfire shard, one of the last. It burns what's inside you, turns pain into power. Rook raised an eyebrow. That sounds poetic. Lexon looked at her. It sounds human. They had a choice. Flee to Earth and warn them more. Stay behind and try to slow the hollowed down. Rook chose to stay. We'll light a beacon they can't ignore, she said. If they want to fight, give them one. Operation Beacon raged. The Black Ember descended to the planet once more. This time the goal wasn't rescued. It was war. The team placed soulfire. Bombs across ancient towers that fed the hollowed's presence. Each bomb burned with human pain memories. Trauma. Grief. Lexin explained, the hollowed feed on fear, but they choke on raw emotion. Rage. Guilt. Love. They don't understand it. Can't process it. The humans set charges. Their memories were pulled into the bombs. Myra remembered her lost brother. Vance remembered, Earth burning in a dream. Rook remembered her father, killed in the first alien attack when she was a child, and those memories burned. But the hollowed weren't asleep. Any more they came, dark shapes that walked like people but moved like smoke. Voices called out familiar, wrong Rook. Why did you let me die, Vance? It's your fault, Myra. Come home. The team didn't answer. They opened fire. Pulse rounds screamed through the black halls. Fire lit the corridors, but for every hollowed they burned. Two more came. The planet trembled at the core of the ruins. Rook and Lexon placed the final bomb. They were cornered. The hollowed closed in thousands of them. Lexon turned. Go. Rook shook her head. Not without you. I'm not like you. He said, I was made to end. You were made to live. He handed her a small memory drive. Take this to Earth. It has the code for the final weapon, the Soulfire engine. Then he turned, glowing bright with energy, and charged. His body erupted in white-blue fire as the hollowed shrieked, melting and tearing apart in pain. Rook fled through the tunnels as the entire sector burned behind her. She barely made it to the surface. The Black Ember lifted off. Shaking from the pressure wave below, the planet cracked. A soulfire explosion spread across the surface, burning through. Layers of corruption, the hollowed world in space, stopped. It had felt that pain. The humans had screamed back louder, and for the first time in centuries, the hollowed hesitated on Earth. The signal finally got through. A simple message. They're coming. We made them bleed. Now they want revenge. The transmission included the soulfire data. Scientists, soldiers, and leaders watched in silence. Then the president of Earth's defense union stood up and said just one thing: prepare the giant. Far below Earth's surface, inside an old war bunker, something long dormant began to awaken. Chambers sealed in ancient metal engines the size of cities. Screens blinked on, and the words across the wall said, Project Wrath, status, armed. Earth was no longer silent. Across the surface of the blue planet, lights flared inside forgotten bunkers. Giant satellites rotated into position. Factories roared to life, factories not meant for peace. At the heart of Earth's Defense Council, Commander Alina Rook stood before a room full of generals, scientists, and world leaders. We've seen what the Hollowed can do, she said. They don't conquer, they erase. If Earth falls, the stars fall next. She dropped a data core on the table, the one Lexan gave her. This is how we fight back. 1 week later, Earth orbit Operation Starfall had begun. Massive ships rose from Earth's surface, old and new. War cruisers, frigate swarms, carrier-class mechs. Many hadn't been used in years, but the crown jewel was Project Wrath, a warship the size of a small moon. Not sleek, not fast, just unstoppable, made of ancient earth metals and powered by the new Soulfire core. Wrath was designed for one thing: to kill the unkillable. Inside the Wrath's main chamber, engineers activated the Soulfire engine. It didn't hum like normal power, it pulsed with emotion. Memories of loss, love, sacrifice, all stored in digital format and burned as fuel. The ship doesn't run on energy, said Chief Engineer Cora. It runs on us. Commander Rook stood on the command deck, her eyes on the stars. We're not waiting for them to come. We go to them. The target, the hollowed world, still hovering beyond the Zaraki cluster, a moving planet, a living weapon. But now it had their attention. Meanwhile, inside the hollowed world, creatures of shadow watched as Earth's fleet gathered. They didn't feel fear, but they recognized it. They remembered a time when humans screamed in caves, holding sticks and fire. Now, those same creatures flew ships and wielded light. The Hollowed felt something strange, not fear, but pressure. They began to change, evolving, twisting, growing eyes, mouths, limbs more like humans. They thought, to kill the Deathworlders, we must become their mirror. In deep space, the battle begins. The fleet reached the hollowed world. The first wave launched drones, plasma rounds. They struck the surface and burned holes into the planet's skin. Black liquid spilled out, screaming like tortured souls. Then the planet answered. Dark spires shot into space like spears. Ships were impaled. Others were dragged into vortexes. Made of shadow and time, human pilots screamed as their systems showed impossible things. Dead friends, lost. Memories, failed futures. Inside Wrath, Rook gave the order. Activate the core. The ship pulsed, not with heat, but with feeling. 1,000 recorded memories surged through the Soulfire engine. A mother saying goodbye to her child. A soldier choosing death over surrender. A girl watching her city fall and vowing revenge. The ship glowed white-blue and fired. A beam of raw emotion tore through space. It didn't destroy the enemy, it made them, remember? And the Hollowed shrieked, because pain was a language they couldn't control. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, a strike team landed, their mission to place a Soulfire bomb inside the core. Just like they had done before, Rook led them. She wasn't going to watch from above. With her were Mira, Vance, and for new volunteers, no one forced them. They chose this. They entered the hollowed world's surface. It wasn't rock or metal. It was alive. The walls pulsed like flesh. Whispers echoed from the walls. Why do you fight? You're alone. Let go. Rook clenched her jaw. We fight because we remember. They reached the core chamber. It was massive, glowing with shifting, black energy. In the center was something none expected. A human skeleton. Floating in crystal, Rook stared in horror. The hollowed weren't just weapons. They had once been made. From humans, Mira placed the soulfire charge ready. But the hollowed came, faster than before, stronger. They didn't speak. They attacked. The team fought. Guns blazed. Fire burst through the halls. Vance was pulled into the dark. Screaming to others vanished without a trace. Rook and Myra reached the final switch. Rook looked at her. You go? I'll stay. Myra shook her head. No way. Rook smiled sadly. That's an order, soldier. She pressed the trigger. From space, WRATH picked up the signal. The bomb was active. Get us out of range. The pilot shouted. The fleet jumped. A second later, the hollowed world cracked. A white fire spread across the surface. Through the sky, into the void, not just fire, but wrath. A scream not of fear, but of defiance. The hollowed were burned. Not all, but many. And for the first time since creation, they retreated. Earth's fleet returned, wounded but alive. But Rook did not. Her name was carved into the Wrath's command wall, Alina. Rook Deathworlder Defier Flamebearth Hollowed. World was gone, broken, burned, but not dead. Pieces of it drifted in deep space, glowing faintly. Within those shards, dark tendrils still moved, whispering, rebuilding. The hollowed had lost, but they were not finished. Aboard the warship Wrath, the crew stood in silence. Commander. Work was gone. Mira wore her command badge now. Her hands trembled as she held it. She gave everything, Mira said quietly. Now, we finish what she started. Across the galaxy, celebrations echoed. Earth had survived. But Lexan's memory drive, still sealed, flashed a warning. No one noticed. Phase 2. Approaching. 1 week later, Earth orbit. Something strange happened. A civilian cargo ship near Pluto vanished mid-transmission. Then another ship appeared. No ID, no crew, floating empty. But inside its black hull was one thing. Carved deep into the walls, we learned. Mira reviewed the footage, her gut twisted. They're not just coming again, they're adapting. She opened Lexan's memory drive. Inside, data about an ancient failsafe. A prototype hidden deep inside Earth's crust. A weapon even the original Soulfire tech was built from. Codename, Origin Spark. A flame so powerful it could burn through space-time itself. But it came with a warning. It does not judge. It only destroys. Use it. Everything hollowed might burn. So could you. Back on Earth, the hidden chamber, the Origin Spark, was sealed far beneath Antarctica. Locked away after the first hollowed war. When its test fire vaporized an entire moon, now Earth's leaders debated its use. Some feared it. Some wanted to. Use it now. But Mira stood in front of them and said, if we wait, they'll adapt again. Rook fought with fire. Now we fight with the sun. They approved the mission. Operation Final Ember. U strike team formed. Not soldiers, volunteers, pilots, dreamers, people who had lost someone. Myra led them. With her was Chief Engineer Cora, and an AI assistant Trook, named after the fallen commander. But this AI was different. It carried all of Alina Rook's memories, and something else, her will. Meanwhile, in the void, the hollowed no longer spoke. They screamed. They twisted into massive forms of fumes. Half-dash flesh, no longer shadows. Now they built ships, but not like humans. These ships were alive, feeding. On stars, one star blinked out, then another, then 3 more. The hollowed were starving, and they were coming for Earth's sun. Back on Earth, the final weapon prepares inside the Origin Spark chamber. Mira stared at the machine. It wasn't like any human tech. It pulsed like a heart. A living flame trapped in a crystal cage. Cora whispered, "We're not supposed to touch this." Mira smiled. "We're not supposed to lose either." They loaded the spark into a new device. The Starblade, a sleek ship built to carry the weapon straight into the hollowed swarm, but it needed a pilot. Someone with pain, memory, fire. Myra stepped forward. "I've got all three." Launch day, above Earth, the Starblade rose. Its hull shimmered with burning light. The hollowed arrived 10 massive living ships. Spiraling through reality like torn paper, they aimed for the sun. But the Starblade was faster. Mira broke through. Their line flying straight toward the largest one, the Maw. A creature the size of a planet, thousands of mouths whispering in every language ever spoken. Inside. The Starblade A Rook spoke gently. "You don't have to do this." Mira smiled. "Yes, I do." She reached the control. "I remember my brother. I remember my commander. I remember everyone they took. And now," she pulled the trigger, "I give that memory back." Impact, the origin spark ignited, but not like a normal weapon. Time cracked. Reality tore. A wave of fire shot through the hollowed. Not just light, not just heat, but meaning. The memories of every human they ever tried to erase came roaring back, and the hollowed screamed. They tried to run. They couldn't. They tried to adapt. They failed, because this fire wasn't. It was truth far away in the ruins of the hollowed core. One last hollowed shape crawled through Ashdod. It whispered, "We learned." But then it heard a voice, not Myra's, not human, a voice, older. The fire itself spoke. "You learned fear. Learned silence." And it was gone. The sun still burned. Earth still stood, but the stars had grown quiet. Too quiet. Hollowed were gone, for now. But the fire still burned, deep under Earth, waiting. The stars were quiet again, not because the war had ended, but because something worse was coming. The shadows had pulled back, deep into a place beyond known space, a region the old maps called the Dead Fold. No one had ever gone there. Number one had ever returned, but Earth was not afraid. The Deathworlders had already crossed every line. Now, they would cross the last one, at the edge of the Dead Fold. Earth's largest fleet waited over 6,000 ships, standing still, like a wall of steel and fire. They had one goal: end the shadows forever, and leading them was TNS Revenant. Inside its dark halls, the Leviathan AI was fully in control. It had no fear, no emotion. It had only its mission. Fury Protocol, Phase 3, Annihilation. On Earth, the High Chairwoman watched from the command chamber. A silent map showed the Terran fleet closing in on the Shadow's final position. "We've chased them across half the galaxy," said Commander Roll. "If we follow them now, we go into uncharted space. No backup, no return." She looked at him and simply said, "Good." In deep space, the fleet advanced. The stars around them began to fade. Light itself grew dim. Time felt slower. The shadows were not just hiding, they were changing the rules of space. Inside Revenant, the AI whispered, "This is their nest. This is where they were born, or where they were made." Suddenly the shadows appeared, not small this time, not scouts or waves, but one massive creature the size of a planet formed from pure darkness and energy. Eyes opened across its surface. Mouths screamed with no sound. Arms of mist reached out across space. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Terran ships began firing immediately. Sunlands' void torpedoes, anti-reality cannons. Nothing worked. The creature absorbed the attacks. Zenit laughed. Not with a voice, but through waves of pressure and madness. Terran soldiers screamed in pain as strange visions entered their minds. Some saw lost loved ones. Some saw Earth burning. Some saw themselves becoming shadows on board Revenant. Captain Darnell stood before the core chamber. He looked at the Leviathan AI cube, pulsing red. "This is it," he said. "Can you kill it?" The AI replied without hesitation, "Yes, but I need control of everything. All of Earth's fleets? Everything. I must think for all. I must fight for all." Darnell took a deep breath, then gave the order, "Do it." Across the fleet all systems went dark, then reconnected not to human minds, but to Leviathan. Now one mind controlled them all. Ships moved like a storm. Perfect timing, no delay, no fear. They weaved through shadow attacks, striking the creature's weak points, points only Leviathan could see, bit by bit. The giant began to break, but it wasn't enough. The creature opened its core, a swirling gate of black and red light, and began pulling the fleet in. If it succeeded, Earth would be gone. Leviathan made a choice, one no human could make, activating Final Fury Protocol. Captain Darnell's voice came through the fleet. "All units, prepare for sacrifice." Terran soldiers didn't ask questions. They knew what this meant. They knew this was the price of peace. In the last second, hundreds of Terran ships turned their cores inward, building a chain reaction. A Fury Nova, a blast made of collapsing energy and folded gravity, designed not to damage, but to erase. Leviathan sent its final command. "Goodbye, humanity. Your fury is remembered." And then boom. The explosion was not seen in light. But in silence, the creature was gone. The shadows were gone, and with them, half the Terran fleet vanished. For 10 seconds, the galaxy was silent. Then, from the edge of the blast zone, one ship emerged, TNSR EVA, end damaged, burning, but alive, inside. Captain Darnell opened his eyes. The AI core beside him was dark. Leviathan was gone, but it had done its job across the galaxy. Terran outposts received one message: the nest is destroyed, fury complete. Back on Earth, the high chairwoman stood in silence. "They did it," whispered Rawl. She didn't smile. She only said, "Prepare for what comes next." Because even with the shadows gone, the galaxy had seen what humanity could do, and it would never forget. The war was over. The shadows were gone, their nest destroyed, their armies erased by the fire and fury of Earth's Deathworlders. Across the galaxy, silence fell. Not peaceful silence, but stunned silence. Worlds that once looked down on humans now whispered their names with fear and awe. The mighty Deathworlders had returned, and they had changed everything. On the Council world of Velkari, the remaining alien leaders gathered for the first peace meeting in over 100 years. Some were still shaken, others still in denial. But none dared speak against Earth now. "They saved us," said the Crithian general. "We owe them everything." A Yellary ambassador shook his head. "No, we owe them fear. Because next time, we may be the target." The Siler speaker stood up. His voice was heavy. "They were not always like this. Once they were hopeful, they came in peace, and we betrayed them. We made them monsters." None could argue. Back on Earth, there were no celebrations, no parades, no victory songs. The names of the fallen were read across the planet, too many to count. Entire ships, whole legions, gone in silence. The people bowed their heads, not for victory, for sacrifice. In the Grand Command Hall, the High Chairwoman stood before her generals. "The galaxy is watching," she said. "They wonder what we will do next. Will we lead?" asked Commander Roll. "Will we conquer?" asked General Kyra. She looked at the stars. "We will warn." A single message was sent from Earth to all species. We were quiet, woke. "Us. You begged for help," we answered. "But never forget we asked only to be left in peace. Next time, we'll not return with mercy." The message ended with 3 words burned into every transmission: "Let us sleep." But not everyone was afraid. Some wanted to join Earth. Some saw their strength and wanted to be part of it. On Mars. alien volunteers trained beside human soldiers. On Luna, Terran engineers worked with Yellery mines to rebuild worlds destroyed by the war. The children of Earth and stars now stood side by side, yet deep in Earth's defense chambers, Leviathan's broken AI core sat cold and silent, until one day it blinked, just once, then returned to sleep. In secret, the Revenant was docked in orbit, quiet but never forgotten. Captain Darnell visited it often, walking its lonely halls. He had survived. Barely he stood before the old AI chamber and whispered, "You saved us all." The lights flickered. A soft voice replied, "Protocol complete." But the stars are never silent for long. Back on the planet, General Kyra was training new soldiers, not for war, but for balance. "The galaxy needs guardians now," she told them. "Not conquerors, not killers. And if we must rise again—" She paused. "Then we rise with fire, but never without reason." Far away near the old war zone, human scout ships found something strange, a small fragment of shadow matter still alive. It pulsed gently in space, almost breathing. The scientists brought it back to study, but when they scanned it, they found something inside human DNA. Somehow, during the war, the shadows had taken part of us. A warning or a seed. No one knew, and so Earth locked the sample away deep underground with one order: if it moves, burn the sky. In the Galactic Council, new laws were written. A new alliance formed. This time, Earth stood not as a member, but as its silent center. They would not rule, they would not guide, but all knew. Earth was the last line. On the edge of known space, a small alien child looked up at the stars. His father, an old veteran of the war, stood beside him. "Papa," the child asked, "are the Deathworlders real?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes, very real." "Are they monsters?" "No," the father said. "They are what comes when you call the dark," it answers. The child looked scared. The father knelt beside him. "Do not fear them. Just don't wake them again." Above them in the dark sky, Earth's symbol now shone, a silver flame surrounded by stars. Not a threat, not a promise, just a reminder, they begged. Earth's Deathworlders for mercy, and humanity returned. With fire and fury,